Okay, so we're working on the E46 today. Philip isn't here, so he's slaying away on this damn thing. And we got to get the engine out, have a new engine coming Monday. And the CV axles are frozen. So trying to get that figured out now. It's just torturing. The other side's actually free. This side, we sprayed it, tried heating it up, did everything to it, and it's a no-go. So now we're heating it up. We got our sledgehammer. We have our vice grips with a little deal there. We hit in the middle because we hit on the outside of the nut. Anything like that is going to ruin the nut. And then up here, in the engine bay itself, we have the intake off. We have the radiator out. I think on this one, instead of dropping the subframe, these are pretty easy to get out. We'll take the starter off next as the next step. Then once the starter's off, we can take a ratchet wrench, get the top two bolts out of the bell housing, and we could take all the lower ones out with the impact. We'll have to take the collector gasket off next. And this thing should come out pretty easy, all considering we could get that out. All right, just gonna show you a little bit. So we finally got this out. What a freaking nightmare that was. We have taken the head of our 2-pound hand sledge, putting it against the face of that, taking a 13-pound sledge and knocking it in. That's what finally got it. But it did get it. So control arms, this thing's probably gonna need control arms, as every BMW we ever had does. But I wanted to show you guys, this car's a little bit dirty underneath, but it's not just that bad. I was gonna show you, look at the brake lines up here. I don't know if you can see it or not. Let me see here. There. They still got the black coating on them, on all of them. Look at that. Look at that. Got a little bit of undercoating on them. But there is, actually got a lot of undercoating on them. Somebody might have sprayed this with undercoating. The car's not undercoated, but the brake lines are. And they're just perfect all the way up. They got the black factory paint still on them. No issues at all. Got some oil leaks. That'll be a rear main there. We're gonna change the training fluid in it. So we'll fix the pan. Leaking right there. The lines above are not leaking. What was this thing? This was, can I even read it? GM. I can't read it. I can see the GM on it. So GM training. And then all the collector bolts, they always break off. E46, they always break off. So if you're doing Guibo bushing and dry shaft work, we'll say a prayer for you. This doesn't matter too much they broke off on this because we're taking the engine out. We could easily air hammer these studs out or drill them out, whatever we're gonna do. It shouldn't be too much of a problem. We could torch them and probably air hammer with the flat bit. But look at the difference on these control arms. So it still has a lollipop, but it's a lot different setup than on a two-wheel drive. All-wheel drive car has a totally different subframe. And look, the ball joint actually bolts to the side of the subframe. That's very odd setup. However, for our purposes, it's real easy to replace it because what we got here, we got one nut here, 2 bolts there, 2 bolts there. Nope, 2 bolts here. What the hell? That might be interesting. 4 bolts and 1 nut, and the bottom control arm just falls off. There is no upper. Obviously, the strut just go right into it. And yeah, when you do tie rods, we'll do tie rods. That's it. We bought new CV axles for it. I think I already said that. And I think at this point in time, we're gonna go ahead and zip out all the bell housing bolts we get to down here, which might be interesting. We gotta take the front drive shaft off too. It's a little bit tight on space in here. To get to that, actually, we could take that off on the back, but it's probably not gonna do us no good. We need to check the U-joints on this. I do not see any rust in that one. I do not see any rust in that U-joint at all. So maybe they'll be good. Like I said, drive shaft and bell housing bolts. I'm gonna let it down, we'll go to the top. And on the top, we just have to pretty much do starter, top bell housing bolts. I think that's it. We should be ready to pull it. All right, so we're just kind of pulling everything out here. Now, there's a couple things about it. the bell housing bolts on the rear, where's the transmission at? On the rear, this is not the same engine, obviously. The one up here behind the manifold, the very top one, we can't get to it all in the E46. You have to let the back of the training down. This one is like seized in, it's halfway in and halfway out, and it won't go any further. So we thought, well, we have a brand new training jack, right? Redlinestains.com. Going over here, we're pulling the drive shaft out, and we got a little carrier barrier problem. Now somebody's replaced the guibo in this thing. The way she looks there, because it's way too good and no cracks at all, and it's still got like the little flacking crap from the mold on it. So we'll probably leave that, replace this, and then we'll pull the tranny down with the tranny jack, and everything like this, like that mount is totally broken out. Oh, I love it. I love it. So it needs a transmission mount or a transfer case mount at this point. A guibo bushing. Control arms. It needs a, you actually see the converters up in there. Look at that. Look a little bit ratty. Oh, they look all right. They're not too bad. But anyhow, that bolt is sitting in there. Pretty tight area, a lot tighter than a two-wheel drive, the way everything's set up in here with a different subframe and a different crossbar back here. We're gonna pull the 3 bolts out of this. We're gonna pull, I guess, the transmission mount, tilt it back, and hopefully be able to get those bolts out with the impact, but we'll see. What do you got here, Monahiki? You got total destruction?
Yep.
Got it? It's totally fine.
Yeah. Perfect.
Totally fine. That probably made no noise at all when he was driving. So we'll just glue it back up. JB Weld.
Sikaflex.
Zip tape.
Put some Sikaflex in it. Perfect.
Stuck just like the front one was, huh? Take it and pop down on it real hard and it should come right off. Oh. Oh.
Looks like no.
Want to turn the camera off or you hit that with a hammer?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're still struggling. We didn't really want to take the subframe out just yet because we went over the damn floor. The top, typical E46 fashion, the top 2 back bolts are like seized in. So they turn super hard all the way out. There's like no, it's horrible, right? So we got, the transmission still hooked to it. We just slid it forward a little bit. We had to take the diff out, which is fun. CV axle was bad and it was like stuck in this side. Had to take that out. We had taken the AC compressor off, the 3 bolts, slid it over. We've taken the power steering pump off and slid it over. And then, did you get it? You got it out. So a couple more turns here and the engine's gonna separate. You can see what, see before that was that far away from the firewall. You couldn't get anything in there to get the last one out. The last E46 I did the 2-wheel drive one. This is totally different than 2-wheel drive. 2-wheel drive one, that the head of that bolt stripped off, and we had to go with the saw. We had to screw 2 sawzall blades together. It was like 20, I don't know, something inches long, almost 38 inches long or something. There's 2 18-inch sawzall blades. I reach up from the bottom of the gap in the transmission and cut the last bolt off. Now this car is totally different frame-wise than 2-wheel drive. You shouldn't have most of, there you got the bolt out. Shouldn't have hardly any of these problems with the 2-wheel drive.
Strip.
It took a lot of Of course, on camera it looks perfect, but in real life you can see it's like galled to the threads because there is corrosion on those. And yeah, what a nightmare. So all we have to do now is just separate the transmission with the pry bar, and we have the floor jacks under that. That'll stay in there for now. Then we're going to take the cherry picker and pull the engine out. We probably should rehook this cherry picker to the middle at this point, I would say, don't you?
Yep.
We're about to get that. All right, let's pry her apart. I turn the camera on just in case things ended up wrong. It's all bound up probably.
Lift it up. Probably should lower.
All right. Yeah. Hold on a second, hold on a second.
Watch your hood.
It's like stuck on there somehow. It's gonna bust that.
Put it on a little bit.
All right, guys, so we got the engine out of the car. What a nightmare. Definitely was not designed ever to take the engine out without dropping the subframe. So it's not that way whatsoever. The transmission's in there. It's just sitting there. When we jack the car, we lift the car up, we'll drop it out. So yeah, what a nightmare. And of course, the torque converter seized on to the crankshaft, of course, right? And yeah, there's a diff over there on the floor. Here's the engine. We're gonna do a teardown on this thing. What happened to the all-wheel drive engine? My guess is overheat strip head bolts. But I'm curious to see if the head's cracked, see if what's exactly is going on there. And we need to pull out a few things like the crank sensor. And if the head's good, we'll save it. The Vanos unit, we'll probably throw it on the shelf in case we have a bad one day. But I think we already got 3 of them on the shelf, so, you know, kind of goes like that. As far as, got some pretty good leakage there on the oil filter, housing gasket, things like that. Rear main, little seepage, nothing real crazy. But yeah, moral of the story is all-wheel drive E46, a total freaking nightmare, as other people have said in the past. And we'll definitely have to drop the subframe to put all this mess back in. So we'll see how it goes. That'll be it. Thanks for watching.